Or we're live now.
All right, everybody. Hey, welcome. It's Todd Cohen, and welcome to my Sales Culture Toddcast. Oh, nice, guys. Yeah, good reading. I like it. Hey, have you learned anything from it? That's the real question.
Great books.
Guess what? Thank you. I remember you bought them at the CFA annual convention when I first keynoted there a couple years ago.
That's what we've been putting our staff through, reading them too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
good.
Signed copies.
Good. Well, you know, by signing them, I make them worth a lot less. So you probably should have had me leave them unsigned. But thank you. I appreciate that. That's really flattering to see. And of course, I'm supporting my second country, my second home team as well. Because I finally got happily my care package, and I'm using everything on a daily basis. Listen, everybody, welcome. I got two rock star Canadian franchisors online with me today as we do. Yeah, I know. Look around. I know I can't find them either. You know, I can't find them either, but I guess they substituted you guys for it. I don't know. You know. What can I say? I mean, I was looking around for somebody. But it is really great to see you guys again. The last time we saw each other was again April 2 years ago. So really 2.5 years ago, we met for the first time. And I have been watching and admiring and in awe of everything you've been doing over the last 2.5 years. I have seen via LinkedIn, via all the social media, via having met your daughter when she did some filming for me for the lunch lady. She was the videographer, and I think I made a video for you going, hire me. And but I've watched the Baisley brothers grow this, and I know it's more than the two of you, way more. I've watched the two of you grow this thing like crazy. So here's my question. Let me kick it off here. Tell me, you know, I know you could talk for days on this, right? Tell me, you know, and I don't even want to say briefly because I got so much I want to talk to you about, but tell me how it got started. Like you guys woke up and said, love this color orange. Let's just go paint cars orange and start a franchise. I know that's not how it happened. So let's.
The story of not to start a business.
Yeah, right. We determined that we wanted to build a business together, and we were both doing other things kind of throughout like 2008, 2009, and decided in 2011 that we wanted to get serious about it and started developing a list of ideas, right? And ultimately, and I think where our success comes from is, and this will play out in anything that we talk about in our business, is our consistent and focused approach on what we want and what we value. And we decided early on what we wanted in a business, what the core criteria were for the business to have, and the franchising model was one piece of that. So yeah, we developed the criteria. We came up with 31 or 32 different business concepts. Transportation wasn't on the list.
Wow.
And, and so we were vetting down the list of 32 concepts, and we, to be honest, one night my wife and I were out for dinner. We used a service to get us home called a designated driving service. Yep. And we got home, and I thought, man, that was not a great experience just because of that operator, but what a cool business model. And I remember texting Brian about 1:30 in the morning saying, I've got an idea. We need to talk first thing in the morning. And of course he was still up reading and doing stuff, and said, what are you thinking? And we started vetting through that idea, and lo and behold, it checked all the boxes basically in terms of the criteria that we set. So so we landed on it through that. But what was interesting was the core criteria that we set up around what we wanted in a business all basically still exists today.
Yeah. So you really, you started this using a very, I guess, a very process-based model, right? I mean, you created your list, you checked things off, you said, this is in, this is out, and then I guess when all was said and done, this sort of winnowed down to what we have now, which is this rock star organization called Driver's Seat.
Mm-hmm.
it's so interesting because in all my years of coaching on business and talking to people about business, this was kind of almost the opposite of how you would do it, because Luke and I created a set of core values in the governance and kind of more about how we wanted to operate than what we wanted to do. And so some of those criteria were, no matter what business we decide to go into together, has to be good for the community, has to benefit the community, has to be scalable. We definitely want to be in franchising because we love working with bright entrepreneurial people, and we want to be scalable for them so that they can build a nice business for the family. So we had this criteria that was actually not tied to transportation. It was, and we'd never worked in transportation before. It was actually tied to what we wanted to spend our day doing in order to make ourselves, our family, and our franchisees happy.
So how often have you guys heard the term, "Oh, you must be Canada's new Uber," or "You must be Canada's new Lyft"? Do you hear that a lot?
Yeah. And typically, because we're in the franchising world, you get a lot of people trying to get some understanding for it. And so, it's a very simple explanation. The shuttle industry is actually about 3 or 3.5 times the size of the taxi industry, the on-call taxi industry. And so we exist in the space. If you look at the transportation spectrum, taxi and Uber and Lyft on one side, because Uber and Lyft are just more modern versions of a taxi.
Right.
And then kind of Greyhound bus or school buses on the other side of the spectrum. We don't play on either of those two fields, but we fill all that gap or all that space in between.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting, Todd. We saw a real shift because we opened in 2012, and at that point, actually, when we decided on the driver's seat model, nobody knew about Uber. They hadn't really emerged yet, and we went from all of the qualifying questions that a client or a potential franchisee would ask in those earlier days, 2012, 2013, were, "How are you different than a taxi?" And I remember calling Brian one day and I said, this is so interesting because this literally overnight went from people asking, "How are you different than a taxi?" to "How are you different than Uber?" And in a way, in a lot of ways, the emergence of rideshare and TNCs has helped us because it opens people's eyes to a new way of thinking about transportation. And but we're certainly nothing like them, or we don't have a similar business model that they do.
So you guys are, from what I can see, again, I've been observing from a distance because as an American, it's a little hard for me to get into Canada right now. I'm dying to come up and walk around your office and meet and talk to people, because what I see from all of your LinkedIn posts and all of your social media is everybody's having a good time. Like, everybody really likes what they're doing. It just comes out from everything I see. And again, I've never even been to your offices. So am I wrong? Are people really that happy, or do they wake up and go, "Woohoo, I get to put my orange on and go to driver's seat"? Other than the family. And by the way, it seems like there's an awful lot of Baisleys out there. Every time I turn around, I'm seeing another Baisley on social media. I think there must be like 300 of you right now, but that's a different conversation. So is it really good? Are people really that happy?
Yeah, we really truly do look at this as people first, and so part of our government is a mandate of these five Ps, and profit actually comes later in the process, because you need profit, of course, to become sustainable and build financial strength. But this really is a people business, and so Luke's got a crazy sense of humor. We bring people in who love to have fun, and they understand that there's accountability and there's work to do. But when play becomes part of your governance, then it's not optional. And so we started a number of years ago. This is just one of many examples, but kind of realized a number of years ago that we were all working hard at the head office, and Luke and I were working through lunch, and weren't really spending enough time actually just chatting with people. So we created a mandatory fun lunch now. And mandatory fun lunch is every Friday at lunch. You have to come into the boardroom, the meeting room together. You can't bring your laptop. We have to talk about personal stuff, et cetera. And then, of course, that morphed into different departments, that would sponsor it and cook for everybody else, et cetera. But it's nice. Part of it. We want to get together. We want to do things. So we typically have between 10 and 12 social events for the team every year. So it's almost every 3-4 weeks. And we love it. It's not, that part's not work to us. We just love having them there. We love having them to our homes, love having them, engage in what we're doing. And we just do some fun stuff together. It's, life's short, right?
Well, life is short, right? And from my perspective, what I keynote on is all about culture, right? Sales culture. And to me, the core, the common denominator is and always will be people. You can always find somebody who's better, cheaper, faster, quicker, right? And if that's the way you want to sell, I think that's the wrong thing to do, because that makes you commoditized and in the mind of the customer. It's the people that are the differentiator, first, last, and always. And it seems like, you have a hiring process that works. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think we do very little recruiting.
I'm not surprised.
If we're being honest. So we have a 4-pillar marketing strategy, and it talks about marketing the driver's seat brand, which is, what is it as a company, as a corporate entity. The personal brand. So each franchisee, Brian and I through LinkedIn, all of our corporate head office staff, everybody has to have an active LinkedIn profile to really highlight who they are as people, right? In a personal brand capacity. And then we have our services brand, which is the meat and potatoes around what we do, right? Hey, we offer shuttle services, or we offer airport services. We promote that. But one of the most important things we do is we promote the employment brand. And that's really what you're talking about, is it looks like everybody's having fun. And what I would say is it looks that way because that's what's happening. And I would love for Brian and I to be able to take all the credit for that. We probably enable it. We probably create an environment where it's okay to have fun, where it's okay to laugh and joke and enjoy what you do. But we also have an extraordinarily fast-paced environment. We have a high results oriented environment. We really measure everything. What gets measured gets done. And so I think it's the vision that people are producing, that they're contributing, and that they're achieving whatever goals they're setting for themselves, or whatever goals we're setting for them as an organization. They're achieving those things, which just makes you feel great about coming to work. And if you feel great, and we can have a laugh and we can enjoy a bite together. You had mentioned about, you see a lot of Baisleys. Brian and I are 2 of 12 children. I am by far, like by a country mile, the youngest. But
I told you it was funny.
See, I was going to ask at the beginning of this, who's the more handsome, but I'm not even going to go there right now.
Who's the most handsome? Who's the youngest? Right? Who's more fun to be around? Any of those, they all basically boil down to me. But when you think about a large family, we were large, tight knit. Catholic family, and meal times were really, really critical. And it was really critical that we had fun. And I think that's really just kind of boiled into our business as well. So as a result of all of that, a lot of the times, if we do need a specific position filled, we'll take a more of a sniper approach, and we'll find somebody. But ultimately, we often have people that just kind of show up on our doorstep and say, I really feel like I need to work here, and I've just seen what's going on. I want to be a part of it.
Yeah, the last 6 head office full-time hires, the last 6 professionals that we hired, just came to us through LinkedIn. They came to us because they were just attracted to the brand. And at some point in time, because we never really, as Luke mentioned, we never really hire. We just talk to people, and so we just have conversations. And at some point in time, there's a position that we'll either create or that's available for them to move into.
Well, as I always say, every conversation is a selling moment, and every conversation you're selling your company, right? You're selling it not only as a service, but you're selling it as a place to work. I mean, look, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I'm proud to be Overhead. We want to go to work in a way, in a place where we feel like what we do matters. It's making a difference, whatever that means to you, a social difference, a monetary, whatever that means. Everybody's got their own definition of that. But what I hear from the both of you, and again, it's so clear in what I see on social media, is that you have an open, inclusive society. Society probably isn't the right word, but it's a very open, inclusive culture, and that's something that I'm near and dear to my heart. I don't get the sense that anybody can't walk into anybody, and that's even kind of very 90s open door policy. But you guys take it to a whole new level. It feels like to me, right? You guys as entrepreneurs, you sink or swim. At the turn of a moment, right? I mean, the pandemic put a lot of people out, but the pandemic for you seems to be enabling your business, right? Giving you more, and that starts with the people.
Well, you're so spot on, and we get a chance to reset every 4 months. We're big believers in how we engage with the community, And so we bring co-ops in, as you might have seen online.
Oh yeah.
And it's so interesting. That program is almost taking on a life of its own because 4 years ago or so, when the program started, we had one co-op come in and it was good. And then we had a couple come in. Starting in January, we have 14 co-ops coming in to work full-time in our office. And these are all very bright marketing, web design, digital marketing specialists, et cetera. And to get to that 14, we had 600 applicants.
I believe it.
And we operate in a pretty high-tech area. This is kind of Silicon Valley of the North, so pretty competitive. So lots of places. They can go work for Google. They can go work for BlackBerry, for OpenText, et cetera. And they're coming here. And it's so interesting because we then get to bring this group in and say to them, you get to control your destiny. You get to control what you do, even in your short 4 to 8 months here. And this is what happens. They all of a sudden they'll say, hey, we're going to do, and just one example, we're going to do pajama day. So Brian, Luke, I need you guys just to come in your pajamas on Friday. And we say, okay. And it only takes them a couple of weeks to realize that they have that level of control to create office environment, parties and different events and social events. And of course that allows them to grow, but we grow with it.
So I have to ask you a question. I mean, what if somebody sleeps in the nude? Then what do they wear to the office?
I know. It was awkward. I skipped out and work that day.
You know what, Todd, I'll tell you what, the first time they pulled it, because I think it was the first time that the students realized that they actually, if they said that Brian and I had to do something, that we actually would do it.
Yep.
And so when they first said, the announcement went out at a group meeting I wasn't here for, and then I was in the office later that day, and one of the students said, like, kind of yelled across the kitchen table to us, to me, saying, Monday you're wearing pajamas. And I said, oh, okay. But then I started thinking, like, is this one of those things where I'm the only one that's going to show up in pajamas? And because that for sure could happen around here. So I took my chances, and sure enough, every person in this office was in pajamas, and so many of us were in onesies that we created a onesie group, and we had a bunch of photos done of it. So yeah, the students pull a lot of weight, and I think if you look at the work we did over the summertime to do a brand launch, for example, right in the height of the lockdown, we did a rebrand, or a brand evolution as we call it.
Yep.
Where the hat that you have there came from, and lots of new color schemes, new revised logo. All of that work, 100% of that design work was done by students, and we're so proud of that. And they're so proud to know that when they go back to school, when they look on social media, they see their work spread across Canada and the United States, all over vans and images and people wearing the gear. So it's a lot of fun, and they take a lot of pride in that. So and going back to another point you made around, everybody needs to feel like they're contributing. We have an 11 o'clock huddle every day with the entire team. Now it's 3 times a week, but we had people at that meeting that would maybe more in an administrative role would be saying, today I'm only working on X, Y, and Z, and we would always stop them in their tracks and say, you're not only working on that. If you are working on that, understand that that's a critical element to the business. If it isn't critical, we're not doing it. We're way too efficient for that. And we sort of talk about the essence of the value of holding a chair. You hold a seat in this office, which means that you're valuable, because that seat would be replaced with somebody else if you weren't valuable. So if you're here, just understand that, and understand that it's never only something. It's always something that's critical.
Well, as I always say, the first time somebody says I'm just what they're saying is I don't feel like I know how I belong. So you never want people to have that I'm just the mentality, or hey, that's not my job mentality. What you're building there espouses so much of my core belief in my work, in my speaking and writing work about, from a sales cultural. And so let me ask you this. It's no secret. We've been through a rough couple of months here. It feels like 20 years. Somebody said to me the other day, remember back in March, and I had to literally step back and say, wait a minute, I literally couldn't remember back that far. And it's not because of age. It's like so much has happened and nothing has happened at the same time, right? Tell me, and tell your, by the way, growing, burgeoning group of listeners right here, what, how have you turned this horrendous thing that we're living through, this pandemic, how have you turned it around? I don't want to say to your advantage because that sounds very crass. How have you leveraged this world that we're in to better the company, to better the people, to better, I already know how you did it, to better your community, because you're providing a valuable service. People need transportation. That's a given. So how have you used this time to better the company?
Yeah, we talk a lot about the head office staff, but really everybody here exists only for one reason. That's our franchisees. And so when on March the 14th, when we realized this stuff is big and this is going to result in some pretty dramatic shift, more dramatic than any of us, of course, have ever faced, we got together with the leadership team and we created a 4-tier strategy. And to this day, we're still using that strategy. And I think the part of the most critical part. So the strategy was tied to ensuring that you maintain physical and mental health, because of course, as you know, Todd, it takes a lot to run a business, to be self-employed, and you have to be physically able and mentally sound in order to perform well through that. And so this was really about us teaching them on different things that you could do and working from home and being isolated, et cetera, in order to maintain physical and mental health. The second piece was to do whatever they could to help flatten the curve. We touch over 400 communities now, and so we said no matter what we do, every business, not just ours, but every business has to play a role in doing that. The third piece was we now need to spend the next number of months, however long it was going to be. No one really thought 9 months at that point or even a year, but whatever those number of months are, you have to spend that time building for post-COVID-19. And that was the most critical business portion of this, which was you have to build a strong LinkedIn profile. You have to build your Instagram profile. You have to build part of our core values is to build meaningful relationships. And so you have to continue to do that. And then the final piece was, you have to build some revenue for today, right?
Yep.
And we really made that the fourth piece of this, and we focused on that piece of it all the way through. So we were meeting hourly at the very beginning in order to help navigate through this. Then we moved to meeting occasionally, a couple times a day, and then daily, et cetera. But all the way through, we stayed very consistent with trying to ensure that we were helping build for post-COVID-19. And the reality is that strategy and our consistent approach to it, as we tweaked and modified it a little bit, allowed us to come out of this first phase of COVID really, really strong. In fact, one of our franchisees landed a $2.7 million contract during COVID. And that's just one of literally dozens and then hundreds of examples of middle to smaller size contracts or types of jobs that we were doing. And so this was really less about, I know our tourism business. I know we do a lot of wine tours, a lot of airport tours, a lot of weddings. Yeah, that stuff's going to dry up for sure. Don't worry about it. Focus on what you can do now to create a 400 or 500% return on investment post COVID-19 by building meaningful relationships. And so going back to your approach on this, you always talk about the fact that everyone's in sales, right? And this is about a sales culture. And of course, in our business, sometimes it's the actual sale of the transaction, but most often it's just about building meaningful relationships because people like to do business with who they know and trust.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, everything. Look, if we're breathing, we're selling, and really, as you say, the common denominator of that is always going to be the relationships and people. The minute we look at our businesses and say, and let other people view it as a transactional business, then we're forever a transactional, commoditized business. And I don't get the sense that Driver's Seat looks at it like that at all. In fact, just the opposite. It's very clear that everything you do is relationship, community-based, which really is, if I were to ask you, which I'm going to ask you right now, tips for entrepreneurs, right? I mean, there's a lot of people out there. A lot of my franchise clients, my franchisor clients who bring me in, they tell me that they're having record numbers of applications for franchises right now, record interest in franchises right now, record numbers of people are looking into it. So I guess the first question is, are you experiencing that same sense of interest? And the second thing is, what advice are you giving people when they're saying, God, is a franchise right for me?
Yeah, I think the so first of all, yeah, we're seeing not just a significant increase in the number of applicants, but the quality of applicants is really, really high as well. So this type of thing will happen. I mean, post 9/11, post SARS, you see people starting to kind of reset a little bit, just trying to understand what they want out of life. And for many people, being an entrepreneur is a dream of theirs, but it takes something tragic in their life or a bit of a scare, perhaps, job-wise, health-wise, et cetera, in order to push them in that direction. But yeah, so we're seeing a lot of interest in this. I think for anybody, if you look, you really have four options. You can work for somebody else. You can buy an existing business with an existing revenue line, right? You can start your own business, or you can become a franchisee where you start with a $0 revenue line, but you've got the support network. And really, ultimately, I think where you land in that business choice is highly dependent upon what you really want out of this type of position, because buying an existing business, quite often you're in maintenance mode, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You can build some revenue, you can lead people, you can do these things, you can invest a bit more money up front, but you're buying a revenue line basically. And then when you look at starting your own business versus franchising, I think those numbers speak for themselves. I think I'm really, really, really proud of anybody that does start their own business and makes a really great go of it. It's just so incredible. But I think for so many people, you can really fast track past having to build a website and build a mobile app. You can buy expertise. You can buy the relationship with all of the other franchisees, which is just so invaluable. And so I think that it's something that's not truly understood to the degree it needs to be, because it's so powerful. You can have all of the benefit of being self-employed without all of the technical challenges around it, and without having to kind of work on your own, because you get to work with a great head office support team, and you get to work with other franchisees who are doing the exact same type of work.
I would expand on that too by saying that, I think anybody who's looking at a franchise opportunity, this is a really unique time where you get to really understand what a franchisor is all about. And I think if somebody's vetting out a franchise opportunity, they ought to be checking into what steps were taken throughout COVID-19, throughout this pandemic, to protect the brand, protect the franchisees, continue to promote and look at building. Quite frankly, there's a whole range of different outcomes from this. Some, you had really strong franchisors that had a product that couldn't survive, or a service that couldn't survive, and they've really suffered from it. You have franchisors who had a reasonable product or service, but did a really, really amazing job at navigating the pandemic just through leadership, and they've emerged in okay shape. In our case, we always look at this as being super fortunate, right? We practice a lot of gratitude in our business, and we're extremely grateful for the fact that we had a service that was deemed to be an essential service, which means that we were able to continue operating, but also that we had, between us, but more importantly our leadership team, really came to the table with a significant commitment to pushing everybody through this. And all the stuff Brian talked about was so critical. And the one piece I would add to it is this overarching theme of optimism.
Yeah.
And because the reality is that you can have all the strategy you want, you can have all the tactics you want, you can have a great sale, a great product, a great service, you can have something that's in high demand. But if you aren't optimistic about where it could go or what the future looks like, you end up spending a lot of time spinning wheels in the woe is me type of environment. And we just would not allow that. It was all in, all optimism. We need to look at what opportunities we have. We need to identify opportunities. And the reality is that optimism, I can tell you very pragmatically that optimism resulted in opportunities opening up for us.
Sure.
And so super critical that somebody looking at a franchise franchising has been a great business model for decades, and it's one of the best ways for somebody to get into business for themselves. In the time of a pandemic, it can accelerate that advantage that much more, because you have this support network and leadership and coaching and even emotional support through that. And so right now there is no better time to get into a franchise, but make sure you select wisely in terms of choosing what type of direction to go in is kind of the advice we would give.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of the franchisees that I see are people who have made purchases, bought the franchise, and then they realize that, they can run the spreadsheet, they can do the numbers, they can do the tactics, but when it comes to the people end of the business, oh my gosh, you mean I have to go out and sell? You mean just because I hung a shingle doesn't mean I'm going to get overrun? And I see this all the time, right? And with all the different franchises I work with, and it's I feel like saying to people, it's so frustrating, right? Because you want to be optimistic and they go into it so optimistically. Then they sort of get this wake up call like, holy moly, you mean it all just isn't going to happen? And then it's like, yeah. So I think, this is where some people, I think, get tripped up. What's the, I suspect you guys have either a zero or a very low franchisee failure rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ours is extraordinarily low, and in fact, we even sold some additional sites and opened during the pandemic, and we continue to do so now. I think there's a couple of thoughts around this. The first is just this overarching thought of what it's like to become a franchisee, because there are franchise systems out there where the franchisee is only in charge of operations, right? And again, nothing wrong with that if that's what they want to do, but they invest money into it. They're there to make sure they've hired people. And a donut shop might be a good example of that. They're not marketing the coffee. They're not pricing the donuts. They're not creating the recipes. And so I think in going back to the advice piece, we have conversations with prospective franchisees who say, if you want that type of work, go to the donut shop, whatever, because it can be really good. You might really enjoy it. It's just not what we do. Because our type of franchise, you're in business development all the time.
All the time.
And so I think it's up to the franchisor to do that. And I'll tell you what, we turn away way more applicants than we accept.
Yeah, I bet.
Listen, we're not here to do this so that you can go out there and fail. So if you don't like business development, and we're okay teaching you that, right? We're okay if you haven't done it before. That's not a big deal. But you have to like people. You have to like talking to people. Right? And you have to help like solving their problems. And if you really like all of that and you love helping your community, then this type of business is good.
Yeah.
There is there's a little bit of this undercurrent in franchising for some, not for all, where a prospective franchisee who might not have spent a lot of time understanding the business model yet thinks it's kind of like a gumball machine. I put the quarter in, I turn it, the gumball comes out. And if I put two quarters in, two gumballs come out. And the reality is, of course, that's not how it works. And so I think for anybody that's looking at a franchise, if you love the idea of somebody else doing business development, somebody else marketing, somebody else doing those things, there are franchises out there that are very successful that might be for you, and it could be a place or a workplace or something. And if you like business development, there are ones like Driver's Seat, but there's other ones out there like that as well, where you actually get to go out and every single day you get to control your destiny and control that revenue line. And that's because to Luke and to me, and honestly to our whole team here, that's the fun part of this, right? The fun part isn't writing out schedules and doing all the logistic stuff. We have software to do that, right? The fun part here is, what do we do to engage with people and help solve their problems? What do we do to build meaningful relationships that will last, for well into the next number of decades, right?
Okay, so two more questions, and the next question that I have for you, next to last question I have for you is, as we are, moving, hopefully, I believe, right, optimistically through the pandemic, and I do think there's more light at the end of the tunnel right now than there was, say a month ago or 2 months ago. There's vaccines on the horizon, all kinds of good stuff, I think, happening. What is your plan? What is 2020, 2021? Say that 20 times fast. What does 2021 look like for you?
Well, we've developed a very, very clear path forward for not only our head office team, but our franchisees as well. And so it basically is founded upon all the stuff that we've talked about, which is we need lots of franchise sales. We are going to be working very diligently to continue growing the brand, and how we're going to do that is by ensuring that each of the existing franchise units that we have currently in the system, they will all be on what we call the hockey stick growth curve, and we are pushing really diligently at making sure that they achieve significant levels of revenue.
It's appropriate for Canada.
What's that?
Appropriate for Canada that they're on the hockey stick.
Yeah, of course. And so in order to build the revenue to where the targets that we've set, we're building programs internally around identifying those locations that perhaps it's relative to how long they've been around, what their revenue is like right now, what their opportunities are, what type of community that they're in. And we're building a small community of franchise partners that we're going to build programs around to escalate them into really high levels of revenue. And when we talk about that, it's tough to give specific numbers out, but we're basically on a warpath to make sure that our franchise as a whole, our franchise system, is one of the most valuable and sought after franchise systems globally.
No doubt.
So if that's not optimism, I don't know what is, but we actually have a fairly clear path forward in terms of how we're going to get it there. And so we're absolutely fixated on it. Everybody in our office, our extended office, our families, our vendors, everybody knows that there's nothing more important than helping our franchisees make more money. And so that means opening up new revenue streams, finding new opportunities, building in-house capabilities and competencies. Our Driver Seat University training program is evolving every week and is absolutely spectacular. And when you talked about this shock value that franchisees often have when they come into a system where it's like, I turn the lights on and unlock the door and I expect sales to be there. The reality is there's no way to prepare somebody for that, and it'll happen 99 times out of 100. And so we've developed almost it's a staged training approach where you're learning the basics of sales for the first 12 months, and you're expected to hit some certain revenue numbers. But beyond your first year, that's when we get into the more complex opportunities and that kind of thing. So we've staged out the training program. That's one example of many of the things that we're doing tonight. And I guess we should throw out a huge shout out to our director of franchise support, Leanne, because she's the brains and the hands behind a lot of this work that's going on, and just doing a spectacular job of it. So initial results are we're exceeding expectations, we're exceeding our targets. So that's what 2021 looks like. Help our franchisees make more money.
Well, I see, not for nothing, but I do see a day when you need a sales culture university, but we'll talk about that another time. On that note, what are your favorite books? Just curious if any book comes to mind right now. Look at that. All right, that was a loaded question, everybody.
So our top 3 books are these 2. Yeah, we're not good enough. You know what? I'm on my second time through reading Traction, which is just a wonderful book. And so much of what Traction talks about with the disciplines of a business, and in some cases, not the sexier part of it, but just the everyday disciplines that really help. In so many ways, it's tied to how we operate, and the way it's written, the way it's laid out, is a constant reminder. So I read through it once. The second time is really more about kind of implementing to finer detail some of the things that are in that book. From Good to Great, I think, is just an incredible book that speaks so much to leadership and culture and how those pieces in a quantifiable way have made significant changes at different companies. And so, I mean, there's no shortage of books, podcasts, etc. Those 2 really jump out. Yeah.
Let me recommend this one. I haven't read it yet, and I'll get to you, Luke, and I want to hear yours as well. But I'm a big fan of anything that has to do with emotional intelligence. Daniel Goleman, he's the only guy. He invented it. He's still the guy. And this is his latest, Social Intelligence. And I just bought it for a couple of my clients, my coaching clients, and I'm looking forward to reading it myself. Luke, your books.
Yeah, I mean, I try to do a nice mix of business books, but also leadership, personal development books. So on the personal development side, I'm a big fan of Brene Brown, actually, who's talks about, shame, emotional intelligence, that kind of thing. She's absolutely brilliant. I like, there's some new thought leaders out there that have, some really cool stuff. Brendan Burchard, of course, Simon Sinek. We're all a big fan of Simon Sinek around here. So any of his books. So yeah, there's a real mix. I think, we try to mix up personal development with business development and sales culture.
Cool. Well, listen, guys, I just got one more thing to say, and that is I want to be invited to a dinner when all the siblings are together. I want to see what 12 siblings are like around the same dinner table. I have a friend who's one of 16, and up until recently, they're all over the board, but they would still get together on Sundays, every Sunday at her mother passed away. Every Sunday they would all 16 and their kids, and there's like 8 trillion of them now. They would all get together. And I just always thought, coming from a very, 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 very small family, and now it's me and Karen and Luna, of course, we are, we're quite small. So I'll be happy to accept an invitation to a dinner at 12 anytime. I just want to watch. I just want to sit back and watch.
Todd, and I mean this with all sincerity. So every day, Canadian Boxing Day, day after Christmas, every December 26th, every member of the family, including the kids, grandkids, great grandkids, are invited to my place. And this is the first year, and I know it's been 20 some odd years, but this is the first year that's not going to happen for obvious reasons. But next December 26th, you are invited.
I'll be there.
And you don't have to worry about just observing, because actually no one will even know. There's 57 of us. You'll just introduce yourself. They'll assume you're a brother or an in-law or somebody. You'll shoot the shit with everybody. We'll have a ton of fun. But it's really a 16 to 18 hour marathon of food, drink, playing shuffleboard and pool. And so you're absolutely welcome for that.
I'm there, and I just won't tell anybody. I'm the Jewish brother that nobody ever knew about. And,
we're going to introduce you as Uncle Todd. And
there you go.
Oh yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, did you guys see Uncle Todd? Is he here? Yeah, good to see you.
That Uncle Todd. Uncle Todd's been around. He's been here every year. What you did? Oh, he had hair last year. That was the problem. All right, guys.
You just have to say good to see you again.
Yeah.
Huh?
You just have to say good to see you again.
Good, and I have to practice my A.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian Baisley, Luke Baisley, you guys are a treat. It's so good to reconnect with you this way. Sorry, it's been 2.5 years since we've seen each other. I was supposed to have been at CFA keynoting this year, but that plug got pulled, unfortunately. I'm so honored, though, to be sort of part of the family at a distance here, and love the organization. Love what you guys are doing. You have an enormous amount to say for entrepreneurs around the world, and doing the right things, staying optimistic. There's some connections I actually want to make for you. Colleagues of mine who are high up at schools of entrepreneurship here in the States would love to have you here in Philadelphia lecturing to some of those classes. Of course, not my decision, but I'm sure my friend would just jump at the idea.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
absolutely.
And that way you can come to my house. We'll get cheesesteaks because you'll be in Philadelphia. You can say Luna, you can meet Karen, and there'll be nobody here. So we'll all be focused on you. So it'll just be the two of you guys. Hey,
sounds awesome.
Happy, healthy holidays. God willing, we'll all see each other healthy soon. And I'll be in Canada eventually. I have lots of people I want to go see up there. So hopefully we'll get you guys on that list as well.
Awesome. Todd, thanks for having us on. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Todd.
For your time. See you guys. Take care. So long, everybody.
Get back to your reading.
Start reading those books.